SeanReyes.com. It's SeanReyes or REYes.com, and come and see the hundreds of legal leaders, business leaders, and community leaders who support me, because they know when it comes to the law, I have spent my entire 15-year career winning in the courtroom and protecting Utah businesses and Utah citizens. I was a partner at the largest law firm in the state of Utah, where I spent 14 years handling some of the largest and most significant cases, not just in the state, but in the country, in courts throughout the country, including the Utah and United States Supreme Court. In 2006, I was the Utah Young Lawyer of the Year, and in 2008, I was selected as the most outstanding young lawyer in the United States by the American Bar Association. I have fought, thank you very much, thank you. I have fought and I have beaten the federal government and large corporations in criminal cases and civil cases when they have threatened Utah citizens and Utah businesses. And that's what we need, ladies and gentlemen, in an Attorney General. Not just someone who is willing to fight, or someone who takes credit for a fight, but someone who has actually fought, like me, over and over and over again, and won consistently throughout his entire career. Utah also needs a leader, somebody with the skill and the experience and the judgment to inspire others and to lead lawyers to victory. And not only do I have in this race the most legal experience, but I have the most experience when it comes to leadership on the front lines. I have led numerous and large litigation teams to victory. I have led legal organizations that have more lawyers than in the AG's office. I have led civic organizations, business and charitable organizations, and I have had success managing a statewide education initiative. When it comes to representing the average citizen, I know how to lead the fight. And whether the issue is big or small, ladies or gentlemen, I stand on the side of those who need a strong voice, and the Utah Attorney General must be the voice of the people. While the AG, thank you, while the AG represents the state, he must ensure that the people's liberties and their freedoms are not harmed by state actions. And my vision is to return that office to a law firm of and for the people, transparent to and accountable to the people, not an office unduly influenced by politics and special interests and lobbyists and political agendas. While politics does have a role there, it should be and must be secondary to the law and to the people. I am not a career politician or a lobbyist or a fundraiser, and I'm certainly not a part-time lawyer. I'm a career lawyer and leader, and I am a full-time champion for those who need a strong voice. And when elected with your help, I will lead the fight to protect our families from violent crimes, gangs, drugs, and predators, whether they be in the street or on the internet, from domestic abuse, which is on the rise, from child abuse. But let me say this, while we must protect our children from abuse, we cannot let the state swing the pendulum so far the other way that they rip children unfairly and prematurely out of the homes of families. We cannot let the state, like in the Parker Jensen case, try to substitute its wisdom for the discretion and the rights of parents and families. I will lead the fight against fraud, including mortgage fraud, affinity fraud, and identity theft that robs the state of billions of dollars a year. And I will protect our business community so that people who lie and cheat and steal in business know that in this state we will aggressively pursue them regardless of political influence, regardless of campaign contributions, regardless of what their name is or who they are. Ladies and gentlemen, I will lead the fight also to liberate our public lands so we can finally access the energy that we need to educate our children and to keep our jobs and our economy prosperous. Thank you. I will also continue to fight against unconstitutional mandates like Obamacare, whether they deal with health care or education. Also, I want to highlight this. I will fight for a workable immigration policy that allows Utah to implement an E-Verify bill, that allows Utah to run background checks on arrests, that gives Utah a chance to aggressively put a stop to ID theft, all without granting amnesty. And I will lead the fight, ladies and gentlemen, everywhere else that the federal government overreaches and overregulates, because I'm tired of Washington telling us how to educate our children, how to run our businesses, what to do with our gold and our land and our guns. I want the same thing you do. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Sean Reyes, Utah's next Attorney General.
And also today in your speech, you talked about a statewide education initiative. What was that?
That
was teaching English to help English for immigrants, to help English become the official language for the state.
Oh, to be the official language.
Yeah.
As the official language. Okay. How'd that go?
I think it went well.
Did it
A lot of,
pass, or-
yeah, we had a lot of volunteers, really good, a lot of participants. I think it went extremely well.
You also said you were going to represent the people, not just the state
Right.
government.
Correct.
And
You're trying to see how you reconcile that?
yeah.
Well, as I said, the Attorney General has to represent the state agencies, law enforcement, but the Attorney General has to make sure that those agencies don't abuse the rights of the people in that process. So in that way, the Attorney General is the last line of defense for the people. Does that make sense? Okay. The Attorney General also needs to stand up when the legislature has sometimes misguided or unconstitutional bills that come through. Things like administrative subpoenas that violate the Fourth Amendment and bypass the safeguards of the Fourth Amendment.
If the legislature is doing something,
Yeah, the Attorney General ought to be giving input. Now, the legislature doesn't have to listen to the Attorney General's advice. You can absolutely advise them on issues like that and help steer clear of unconstitutional bills and actions. Absolutely.
what are some examples of those unconstitutional bills?
I was just trying to mention one. Have you heard of an administrative subpoena then? That modeled after the Patriot Act. It allows investigators or prosecutors to access ISP information, so internet information from an average citizen without having to get a probable cause statement from a judge. So without having to go and actually demonstrate a need, the Attorney General's office now has power through its executive power to write itself its own permission slip, if you would, and access that information from you or from me for their investigations or for their prosecutions, again, without the safeguard of having to go through a judge. So to me, that's highly unconstitutional. I could not repeal that law as Attorney General, but if I am Attorney General, I would stand up very vocally and say, our office will not use these administrative subpoenas, because no matter how valuable the information that you glean, or no matter how bad the person is that you ultimately convict, that's winning the wrong way. And to me, that's the role of the Attorney General, to make sure that rights, liberties are not violated. Even though we want law enforcement to be aggressive, but there's always that tension, right? As state agencies try to do their jobs. And I'm not throwing all state actors under the bus. A lot of them are doing their best, but that's what the AGs should be doing, is being vigilant about that.
Okay, so you would, I think you stated that very well, that you're going to not use the administrative subpoenas.
Correct.
And you can let the legislature know that that is not appropriate.
Right.
Okay. What if you talked about must protect children, but not rip the children from the parents?
Sure. There's a delicate balance that you walk in wanting to protect. And let me say up front, crimes against children, especially abuse, are the most heinous crimes imaginable. So we all want to keep children out of abusive environments. But I think that the pendulum has swung far too much the other way, where now you have the state intervening and prematurely taking children out of the home in an effort to try to protect them. And I think that violates the rights and the liberties of the families and the parents and the choices. And I mentioned the Parker Jensen case as well. And say, I think that the state trying to substitute its judgment for those of parents, again, violates the Constitution. No, those are hard cases, right? We all want to protect children. We all want to do the right thing, but it's not worth it if it's giving up the rights of parents and families. So there is a fine line, there's a delicate balance. Those are tough, gritty issues that the AG's office deals with, but we need to give thoughtful, take a thoughtful approach to it. Yes.
You would not have prosecuted this.
Correct.
You would not have charged his parents with
Right.
kidnapping their own kid.
Right.
Okay.
Yes.
There's another case that was similar.
Can he hear you saying that? So I would not have prosecuted. Okay. The parents. Yes.
Thank you.
That's right.
There's another case. A family had a baby in the primary children's hospital, and they decided they wanted to take the baby home. They took their baby out, and the government came down on the family, chased them out of the state, captured them, and then the government forced those parents to get a divorce. What would your stand be if that case happened?
Well, let me say this too. I'm not fond of giving opinions on hypotheticals that I don't know a whole lot about, and I don't know the facts of the case. I heard a little bit about that, but it sounds like heavy-handed, coercive government action to me. To force a family to get divorced, I mean, regardless of the situation there, that's not the state's role. To either be intervening with familial decisions like that, taking over businesses, like in, even in an environment like a polygamous environment, that the state shouldn't be intervening. And sometimes the state, I think, will do it for political reasons or for press releases. But again, it's not the role of the Attorney General. It should be the opposite, protecting the rights of the people.
Right. You mentioned you're against Obamacare.
Absolutely.
And you also said you're against the educational part of Obama's plan or something?
No, I never did say any of those things. I said I'm against Obamacare, and I would fight to continue any unconstitutional mandates, including health care or education mandates.
That's what I wanted to get. Education mandates.
Like No Child Left Behind.
Okay.
I think.
No child left.
Yes, and I'm worried about Common Core as well. Although I understand the state hasn't taken money yet. They were part of a coalition that has received money. I'm worried that pretty soon all the education mandates are going to be tied to Common Core, and so I'm not ready to say right now that.
But you would investigate that.
Absolutely, but Common Core, to me, I'm very skeptical about those types of top-down, one-size-fits-all approaches, just like No Child Left Behind. And
research I've done on Common Core is that Obama is basically encouraged the states to do it.
yeah,
And if the states agree to do it,
then they're
Obama's going to give them a pass
right.
on No Child Left Behind.
That's what I understand too. So to opt out of one horrible situation, you need to opt into something that might be even worse. But
So I'm against Common Core.
good. Well,
I would want to know if you're against it.
well, I'm against Common Core right now. But I think that my point is that regardless of whether it's No Child Left Behind or Common Core, I do not support these types of federal standardized mandates.
The state school board claims it's not a mandate. Common Core is not a mandate for the government, federal government. But the evidence I looked at, so
It appears to be
there's some connection somehow.
right.
But I think it's worth looking into that before we accept it.
No, I agree as well. Then
So right now it's kind of questionable, but kind of.
no, again, from what I've seen of Common Core, I do not support Common Core.
Yeah. Okay.
I guess my only point was that people have said we've taken money from the government as a state right now. I don't think that that's accurate, but that's what I don't want us to do, is to start taking money and tying ourselves to programs, because I do agree with Chief Justice Roberts, who said the states are becoming too dependent on the federal government, but they keep taking the money, and so you lose your moral imperative once you've taken the money. You don't have a standing to complain after that. So I want to wean us off of federal programs like that.
Okay. That's good. Anti-mortgage fraud. What are some examples?
The entire fraud is there's so many examples of, when you talk about I'm talking about affinity fraud, I'm talking about identity fraud, and I'm talking about mortgage fraud. All of those, they're all important. Let me say this: I helped start Fraud College, which is we call it neighborhood watch type program for investment or affinity fraud, because in the state of Utah we lose $1.5 billion to $5 billion on an annual basis, according to the regulators, just from affinity fraud. We're not talking about. That means somebody you trust using that position of trust to take advantage of you. A neighbor, somebody that you know from a civic organization or from church, saying, I think you need to invest $100,000 today. This is your last opportunity to do it. And we have so many victims of that. And some of the ideas I have, aside from educating, I don't want to grow government. And just increasing prosecutors or the number of folks on the back end is, I think, ill-conceived. I believe it has to be a comprehensive approach. One is to educate the populace and the public. And I would like to use the Office of Attorney General to shine a light on this issue, because it's a huge issue. People lose their life savings every single day and their lives are ruined.
and there's not enough that we're doing on the front end to educate people. And another idea I had that was covered in the Economist magazine, they picked it up, was to create a fraud registry. So like the sexual predator registry, to create a registry where if you've been convicted of rooking your neighbors out of tens or hundreds of millions of dollars, you're on that registry. And people, before they make an investment, before my grandma invests her life savings, $50,000 or $100,000, she can type a name in and it'll show up on the registry. It's just one simple, low-cost solution on the front end, which will hopefully obviate the need for having so many prosecutions on the back end. There's things with restitution that I want to do to make sure victims are taken care of more, because right now our recovery rate is so abysmal. And some of the things that we can do is sign, actually, like restitution either on a small level or on a large level. Once they've been convicted and they're off the judge's docket, there's really no teeth. There's nothing to follow up, and people may pay the mandatory $50 a month, and after that, and they've off probation, they serve their time. There's nothing left for the victims. I want to keep them in the judicial system, like a bankruptcy. Make sure that they have to continue to come in and report to a judge, so the judge knows where their finances are, and whatever that they have, that they continue to make restitution. A caseworker, if you would, is assigned to them. And again, I don't want to increase, but this caseworker could be somebody who's already working in the office. And for reparations, and I think it's a huge thing that would help restitution. There are other ideas I have too. I don't want to take too much of your time on that, but that's another focus, because we want to stop it, but it happens so often that we want to help victims who've already lost their life savings get some of that money back.
Yeah. What about people who have invested and the federal government comes in and confiscates all their investments from the company they invested in, and so people who invested are totally lost. They don't have any recourse.
People who've invested, and then the federal government, you mean like regulators like the SEC have come in and frozen assets or taken them away?
Rated a company that people have invested in and wouldn't let the investors get their money back.
The state of Florida.
And the national government also was involved in that. And one of them agreed that there was no need for that company to be rated, but the investors still not got their money back.
Yeah, that just illustrates, that's one of a million stories out there of people who've been defrauded, who have no recourse, and I think that the state needs to do something on not just the prosecution side, but on.
What I'm saying is the company wasn't the fraud. The government has admitted that the company
Was
did not do the fraud. It was innocent.
okay,
The government thought they were the fraud. They came and took all their assets.
right, and that happens a lot too. That's what I was alluding to before, and the government absolutely needs to get it back, right? I mean, that's so wrong on a number of levels. But that's if they have an attorney general who is guiding that process, who is making sure that those state agencies are doing the constitutional thing and the right thing, then there's pressure from the attorney general to say that money needs to go back, then that's my vision of what the attorney general should be doing. And who knows what's going on there. They're advising them to keep the money.
There's also a case in Utah on the Interstate 70, I believe it was. A man was traveling through Utah with cash, his own cash. He was stopped by the police, or the highway patrol. They forfeited his cash, and he had to go to court to prove that he was not a drug runner. And they proved in court he was not a drug runner, but they did not give his cash back because it had already been forfeited. To the,
Right, to the law enforcement, to the agency.
they'd already used it.
Yeah, that can't be. We can't.
That guy never was able to get his money back. I think the Attorney General should do something about it.
Right.
Make sure that doesn't happen.
That's right. you need somebody who's vigilant and making sure that, again, while the state agencies are trying their best to do, and we want law enforcement to be aggressive, that they don't overstep the bounds and sacrifice civil liberties in the process. And I think that's another good example. I've got many of them too, which is why I've been frustrated.
Okay. There was Utah passed asset forfeiture initiative.
Right, Citizens Initiative.
Said that no longer can they
I believe our current Attorney General supported a bill that effectively bypassed the limitations that the initiative had put.
the people overwhelmingly majority want
Right.
that limitation.
Right.
The Attorney General said let's get rid of that limitation to some degree. Well, how would you have acted as Attorney General?
No, I would have respected the voice of the people, and I think that right now they're able to bypass by going through a federal agency and then bringing the money back into the state the stricter safeguards that the Citizens Initiative would have placed on the process or placed on the process. So this bill effectively did an end around the will of the people, and I don't think, again, that's the role of the Attorney General.
So I think that your idea of the role of Attorney General is, like you said, make sure the people's rights are still preserved.
Right. It's an office of and for the people, and it needs to be transparent and accountable to the people. What I'm grateful for is that we elect our Attorney General here in the state of Utah. If not, it'd be like Eric Holder, appointed at the federal level, or other states that appoint, then the Attorney General's beholden to the legislature, the governor. I like the fact that we are able, as Attorney General, when I'm Attorney General, I'm going to stand independently. Look, I want to get along with the legislature and the governor. It works better when all branches of government are working in sync. But you're independent, and that's also what I like about my relationships with many of the folks on the Hill, is the relationships that I have. We're not best friends. We don't hang out. They respect me because I've given them legal opinions in the past and advice on some of their bills. The same with the governor. And they're our clients. The governor is our client. The state agencies are our clients. I want the best representation for them, but I want to make sure that in that representation that they are mindful of the people's rights. But going back to my relationships, I think that's healthy. They're arm's length. I want the Attorney General to have relationships with the legislators and the governor based on respect, not based on any relationships through PACs or lobbyists or campaign donations or anything else. I think it needs to be healthy at an arm's length. So.
Okay. Just a couple real quick things. I hope that short answer was
Okay.
the right to people keep and bear arms.
Second Amendment, absolutely. I'm a big supporter. In fact, when I had started the Freedom Defense PAC a number of years ago, we spent a lot of our resources educating people. We would pay for the instructors to do concealed carry classes throughout Utah, and then they would pay for the attendees would pay for their own registration fees. But we even targeted women on those because we thought it was important not only that they learn their rights and how to protect their rights, but also the joy and the importance of owning and exercising your Second Amendment rights. And that was very successful. I'm a member of the NRA.